Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of the INCHSTONES podcast. I am thrilled today to have Molly Sebastian here of the Invictus Bakery. This is obviously not just any bakery. When you combine the fact that she and I were brought together by a mutual friend who is such a deep ally and advocate for children like Molly and mine, non-speaking autistic individuals, it is of no surprise that Molly is taking the world by storm in her mission. And it is an honor to have her here today on the INCHSTONES podcast. Molly, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us. He's in there.
Yes, there he is. I love it. So Molly, you have a daughter named Ava, and I would love to hear more about Ava tied into your story and your why in the founding of Invictus Bakery. And I know that you began in Brooklyn, but I do believe you guys are branching out. So we've got a lot to cover.
Yes. So Ava is now 17 years old. She is a minimally speaking person on the autism spectrum. And we have since discovered spelling to communicate. But before that, I didn't realize that she could read or write. And so I'm a worrier by nature. So I knew that she was in her school program and that the services would cover her until age 22. But around 7 years old, I started to think, okay, what are we going to do here? Because she wasn't able to have a back and forth conversation. I believed that she understood everything, and I knew that she wanted to be productive and she wanted to be task-oriented. So again, because I'm a worrier and this was 7 years old, I thought, okay, we have however many years till 22 and she's out into the world with no real possibilities for her profile. That is at least what I thought at the time. So I was a reality TV show producer. And so part of that is...
Well, are in New York, right?
Right, exactly. So part of that is, just not being afraid of piloting and coming up with a proof of concept and being okay with not knowing the answers. So that was sort of my mentality. And then knowing that Ava had a very expensive strawberry habit. And I thought, okay, what can we do with that expensive strawberry habit? So I brought in someone that could teach her how to cut with a knife, which my husband thought was dicey, but a lot of our kids have very amazing muscle memory. So taught her how to do that. And then we just came up with this proof of concept of can we do something productive together? So we created this little micro enterprise called Ava K's Super Smart Strawberry and Chocolate Jam. And we sold on street fairs in one summer, when she was 7 years old. So we found a couple of street fairs, the places that didn't require a lot of red tape. And we would just show up, she and I and the dog, and we would start selling. And I think that the biggest thing then was just how people they just wanted to know the story. They wanted to help. There was so much goodwill. And that is really what made me think, okay, maybe there's something here to sustain this.
It's the resonating thing that I love in sharing stories like yours, but then I hear you right now. There is something so luxurious about a mother who believes in their child. And I use that word with so much intent. It is a luxury to sit in the position as a mother to children who are atypical, which is in a broad sense, and to deeply believe that there is a depth of humanity in that child and it's willing to sit with the uncomfortable nature of trying something new, but aligning it with things that, like you said, her very expensive strawberry habit, right? And that combination, I think, is what, again, is this magic sauce for a lot of parents of children with autism. Those of us that sit maybe more on the more severe end, is that finding those ways to connect and then realizing that that's just a launch point, right? So this is how it started. So you went to these little fairs. How did we get to Invictus in 10 years later?
So I teamed up with my dear friend who is an autism educator, Allison Myers, and I was on the board of her school at the time. She founded an autism school, and she was really the first person when Ava was very young that looked at Ava and thought, okay, what can she do? Versus counting all the deficits and taking data on all the issues. She really just saw her in this light of what can we do? And she taught Ava how to swim, and we became fast friends. And so we co-founded together, again, just a pilot. Let's take this idea, this proof of concept. Let's see what happens if we start a class. She had like a faithful following of students, and that was it. Our very first product were dog treats, for lots of reasons. And we started out of a rental kitchen in Manhattan 1 day a week with like maybe 5 or 6 bakers.
Mhm.
And so that was our starting place. And, there was a lot of fear at the time, even from myself included. Definitely lots of family fears of we're in this commercial kitchen. This place is the real deal. There are flames and knives on the wall. And mostly we had minimal and non speaking profile bakers. Families had a lot of concerns like my child isn't going to be able to do the class for 3 hours or 4 hours. And keep in mind, I had the same concerns.
Right.
So that was really what started. And from there, it was truly an experiment and a bit of a gamble to see what would happen if we were in this commercial space. And each day, each week, each class, we would always have to sort of raise the bar because everything that they were asked to do, they had no problem doing. So fast forward now, I don't know if you want to fast forward all the way,
Well,
but
let's pause right there for a second because I have a great thing I want to talk about. You talk about this fear, this parental panic that was like, there's no way that XYZ is going to sit here and learn for 3 hours and then the next time go implement it and grow. Because there is a conditioned response that we as parents are so fearful of. What if they can though? What if they can? And I was talking to, and I know that you follow who I'm going to mention next, Kai Dickens of the telepathy tapes. And she talks about the fear of the parents before their child would fly to be interviewed for the telepathy tapes or participate in an experiment, and how it's sometimes that paralyzing nature of like, there's no way they can't even cross the street without me holding their hand. How are we going to get in an airplane for across the country with all these sensory inputs? And what she brought up, and you spoke to this so beautifully just now, is that it's incredible what they can do when they know you believe they can do it. Full stop. And
yeah.
I think that your example right there is gonna make me cry because it speaks to that. It's that give me the chance and I'm gonna show you that I can. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and I think especially when we're talking about the minimal and the non-speakers, we have the full profile, we like to say. So we have bakers that maybe live independently, and then we have bakers like my daughter's profile. But all of them really have been, just underestimated. And so the first thing we do when a baker comes into the program, we've always done this from day one, is we say, we know how smart you are, and we want to train you to work, and we don't want to underestimate you. I think in the early days, especially, we still do this, but in the early days, it was so purposeful that it was almost how I would channel my anger. I would get an email from school or something would happen on an IEP, which one of her goals on one of her IEPs was to put on her chapstick. And I thought, like, what? So I would always try to take that, because I know there are all kinds of reasons, and I'm not
I
trying to
know.
badmouth anybody, but
I
I would
know.
take those things, my rage really, or my anger, and I would just try to channel. And so that's where it came from, just our belief. And especially with the minimal and the non speakers, we really believed, and now I know for sure because of Spelling to Communicate, that they're inside of there. And not only are they in there, they're running circles around the rest of us. That's what I believe.
Without a
So in
doubt.
the early days too, we knew that the reason we're product based is because we knew that we needed to tie what can look like chaos, right, to something tangible. Because the
Yes.
classes, people are moving around and it's noisy and people are stimming and all kinds of things are going on. And I think if you're there, especially as a visitor, that's what you're focused on. And it's really important at the end of the shift to show, yeah, here's the like beautiful, tangible product that they're selling to Zabar's, or
Agreed.
wherever. Yeah.
I think, yeah, and that kind of brings me to the next point is that Invictus Bakery is not just talking about these inclusion experiences, it's creating actual real work with a real product. And, you know, paid employment is such an important part of your model, it sounds like.
It is. So we started realizing also that our bakers were, training, reaching proficiency in any other program you train, and then someone hires you and you're dispatched and you go off into the world. That does
Mhm.
not happen with our bakers. In the few cases with the folks that need fewer supports, let's say, or do have spoken language, they'll get jobs and they will return to us for reasons, employers, there's not a lot of grace out there for our community, if I'm honest. And so talented bakers will come back to us and say, it didn't work out because I asked the same question too many times. It's an unforgiving world, right? So
Mhm.
we came up with our own in-house certification. It's called Hire Me. You can work towards certification of our product. That means that you can complete an order from prep through packaging on your own. Once you're certified, then you're eligible for paid shift work. And then, this is another idea that everybody said, this will never work. This is a crazy idea. And now we have some of the world's biggest companies, let's say Morgan Stanley, let's say they want to order 200 cupcakes. They'll order the cupcakes, but they'll also pay for the certified baker's shift to make the cupcakes. And the deal is that we manage the workforce. So that's been our workaround.
Well, again, and you're showing the evolution of the process on this, and this being an idea that comes to not only a product fruition, but a process fruition too. And that the bakers that come back to you, maybe that, like you said, maybe experience the scary, very tough, harsh reality, sometimes can come back, share that, and continue to learn about their own sense of dignity and contribution and being truly known. And it does surface like a higher level thought, which is that not every place is for everyone. And I think being truly known in a place has such deep value for the person that's inside of each of us, especially those of us that have children that are minimal or non-speakers.
I think it's maybe lonely, at least this is what they describe, some of them. It's lonely to be the only disabled person or the only autistic person in an otherwise, neurotypical workforce. I don't know if people still use the term, but it's a bit of like reverse inclusion. So it's very integrated. It's open to everyone in the public, but it happens to be a lot of autistic bakers.
It's Hire Me, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
like, I wonder if, like, do you have any hope beyond it just being inside and, yes, touche, baked into Invictus?
Absolutely. So we came up with this workaround, but we know that if we really want to move the needle on employment, employers need to start hiring our folks. My personal thought is I would love to see hiring in pods if that's possible. So not just one person. And then I just think there has to be so much education on the employer end. To me, these like things that keep our bakers out of a workforce are so, in my opinion, trivial a lot of times. So what that they're not making eye contact or don't say thank you. I have managed a lot of teams and I find our workforce to be I'm so spoiled from getting to work with them because, first of all, the word is the word. You say the sentence and we're always like, we're looking up here, we're looking down here. We never take it. What does she really mean? Right.
Oh
But
my gosh, it's so true. It's so true. It's like there's a grounded nature in like truth and reality that my children gave me, but just by being who they are. But the skill that I learned is that I just take it. It just is like things just are, and we've created worlds around us sometimes that actually I think cause actually much more confusion but then the direct nature can be seen as uncomfortable. It's almost completely flipped if you really boil it down. Like, let's just say it and move on.
yes, yeah. So that is just like it's a privilege, it's a joy. It's just to me, I am so happy being in a workspace with the autistic bakers.
So you mentioned that you get major companies to come in and place orders. How did that look like for your team? Was that something that Ava and the other employees were part of, or was that really the vision that you were taking hold of to market and advertise? I know that your first location is in Brooklyn, correct?
Yes.
And
No.
then go ahead.
Again, it just sort of like stumbled into this. So we always give our landlord, who's our dear friend, he always says, I haven't done anything, but we're on that beautiful block in the heart of Park Slope, Brooklyn, around the corner from the Barclays Center. Every single employment partner that we have, Bain and Salesforce and JetBlue, we have big employment partners. Every single name that I mention is someone that wandered into our space, truly, and said, what is this? And the thing about all of this and our conversation is none of this could work if the bakers weren't the real deal, if they weren't truly talented. So when people come into the space, I love, again, I think this is the background of schools and never kind of knowing what was going on. We love welcoming people in and saying, like, here, come table to table, meet the baker, ask any questions. And so that's the selling point. And so when people walk into the space, when you're in a bustling area, which is really great just for the visibility, I feel so strongly that a storefront, if possible, is the way to shift a narrative. And then
Totally.
again, so much community support.
Yeah, I think you're right, is that, I lived in New York for, around 10 years. And I think that one of the things that when I moved to the suburbs of, of New Jersey, I forgot how much my foot traffic informed me of what I was taking in the world. And that's such the beautiful part about y'all being in Brooklyn for sure, is that wandering that is so natural in the area is such a part of why this resonates, because you can wander in and you can take it in from a storefront. And that's the cool, again, obviously you live there. I lived there for a while. That's one of the best things I love about the community in New York. And that the sense of community, whether 8 million people plus, it still has that one-on-one feeling from any store that you wander into.
Definitely. And our little block also, and we have the same thing in our second location. Just the neighbors know the bakers. It's somebody's birthday. It really is. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to be included and integrated that way. It's the way
So
it should be.
what would a day-to-day look like? This is what I was going to ask you next. So morning happens. How many employees do you have right now? And what does that look like from a leadership standpoint, even within those employees?
Oh my gosh, is sometimes it's is bustling. I mean, it is just bustling. It's a small, compact little bakery on Bergen Street. And the second location we could talk about in a minute. But so it's bustling. I mean, we have anywhere from like 10 to 12 bakers. And then we have our team as well. So it's, probably about 20 people in the space. Sometimes, like once a month, we welcome corporate volunteers. So then we've got a lot of people in the space. And, some people are training, some people are taking just the classes, and then some people are filling always people are filling orders in the back. And then you've got the person doing the dishwashing who is also on the spectrum and deliveries. And so it really feels like this bustling ecosystem. And for as bustling as it is very orderly. And because they come in, they look at they look at the whiteboard, they look at what their job is, and they get to work. And if
Okay.
we have any kind of an issue, really, it's that, saying like you need to take a break. You've been working for 4 hours, like just take your lunch
Yeah.
break. But it's really a workforce, and we have all kinds of, just like any business. So we're constantly carving out new jobs. We have brand ambassadors who go to some of the corporations and talk about our mission. We have, dishwashers and delivery people. We have recently, which I love this, it's baker to instructor pathway. So bakers who are on the spectrum who then become instructors, including we're training one of our minimal speakers to be an instructor, which is awesome.
So fantastic. Again, it sounds like there's so many different pathways to take once they get the opportunity. And I think that's what I was so drawn to when I heard your story through our mutual friend. But why it works and why it continues to grow is that it's formulated on the fact of this deep belief that they can do it. And I love what you said about the break, because good Lord knows my daughter Millie would bead on like pony beads and pipe cleaners, like almost to the point where like there'd be like she'd fill an entire Taylor Swift tour stadium of beer,
Right.
right? Because she wouldn't stop. There's no reason for her to stop. So we mentioned before your primary location is in Brooklyn. Talk to us about what's happening next and how it's growing.
So in May, almost a year ago, we launched our second location, and it is the Speller Bakery. So this is really focused on the non-speakers and the minimal speakers who spell or type to communicate. My daughter is a speller. Again, my husband and I didn't know she could read or write. We were introduced to spelling 4 years ago, and now we're blown away. Now she's not only can she read and write, she's bossing us around. It's really amazing to think about these spellers, because in many ways they've been robbed of an education. So it's amazing how they even know what they know, which is really fascinating. So this bakery is just for the spellers, and it's to reframe them as entrepreneurs and thought leaders. because, I think maybe you and I take for granted that we get to create things. We get to create things. You want to create a website, you want a podcast. I just can't imagine not all the things that they're not able to do because of society. And then on top of it, you can't create. So that's really what it's about. It's about many things, but it's about reframing them.
Yeah, I mean, my children are both very early in on their spell to communicate journey. They do receive it at their school, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. And we can chat more offline about that. But what do you think? This is not about the bakery. I mean, what as Ava began spelling, what changed for you? Like not just practically, but emotionally, because I think the heart of this, and again, this being your second location, focusing on that as someone who's new to this journey and seeing what they are possible of with their facilitator, it is, I mean, it truly takes my breath away. So can you tell us about that journey for you and with Ava?
Yeah, I mean, I really never saw coming. And it's incredible. And even though we're like 4 years into the spelling, or maybe almost five, and she is proficient on the letterboard and the
Perfect
keyboard,
color. That's amazing.
but still, I'm not proud to say this. Like, I'm finally, I will say, getting to the place where now I know what the insides are, right? Because the outside still, she'll repeat the same phrase, or, you know, again, that the definitely the insides don't match the outsides, right?
Mhm.
And so this idea that, oh my gosh, this is this like smart, funny, really sassy kid inside of there, it's incredible. And now almost like she's so wise. She and I think her spellers. So she's in a spelling program. We're very lucky to be in a Monday through Friday spelling program. And the highlight of my whole life is at the end of each day, they upload their transcripts. This always
Mhm.
makes me emotional. So I
Yeah.
get to read. I get to read what they all say, and I know their personalities now. Like, this one is, funny. This one is like cosmic. This one. So I
Yeah.
look forward to it so much. And they're just so full of wisdom and knowledge. And so I feel that way about Ava too. And if anything now, it's like I have to remind myself, okay, she's 17 years old. Don't go to her for like guidance, right? Like, she's a kid.
Well, that is so true. I mean, they do. I think when you kind of cross that threshold of understanding that they hold such wisdom and knowledge about unconditional love and the heart, that and soul of what makes them tick, having a boy and a girl, sometimes I with the same exact sort of profile, I laugh constantly over the fact that there are some things that are so painfully girl and boy. And these are children that do not speak, have wild, deep apraxia and dyspraxia behaviors and issues and comorbidities and all these things. Yet at the end of the day, my Millie, the second daughter, the middle child, she is so painfully the middle. It's almost like no matter how she can't communicate or how she does, that little girl is so typically middle. She doesn't give a flying F sometimes, just like a typical middle child. She's just doing her thing. And my son is going to sob his eyes out when I leave because he's a damn baby. He's the baby brother and he is such a mama's boy. And I'm like, because he's the baby and of two older sisters. That's not
Yes.
because he's autistic. That's not because he can't talk. It's literally because you cannot run away from the most basic primal things that these children as they're evolving. And I love hearing you say about Ava, like you have to remind yourself, like she's a 17-year-old girl. She's a 17-year-old girl who's going to be sassy to her mom. Like
My
she's going
gosh.
to put you in your place.
Yes.
And so that typical response sometimes in a atypical presenting child does create this like mismatch. Sometimes it has to settle because you don't want to force them, like you said, to be these like oracles of like, if I just follow their lead, everything will be okay. Right.
Yes, right. No, right. Because I do think, she just seems to have this way of knowing things that, yeah, it
Mhm.
is. I don't want to further burden her,
That's
right?
right. That's right. What do you think has sustained you the most? Not as a founder or an advocate, but simply as Ava's mom. Like what has sustained you the most?
I mean, I think I'm on I love my fellow advocates. So I do a lot of coalition and advocacy work. And I think that we all have the same fear, right? Which is what is going to happen when we are not here. So my husband, is a 2-time cancer survivor. I am just always in my mind, okay, this is great now, right? She's got this, she's got that. But what happens if we're not here? So as sort of heavy as that is what sustains me. I feel like I'm part of a team of other advocates. We have this problem to solve. The
Mhm.
government programs are not terribly helpful. They're actually working against us in some cases, like with the Communication Bill of Rights.
Yeah, I went down in DC petitioning and literally talking to legislatures about this. So it's going to be a battle. And I do think that by like you saying, these coalitions and not stopping speaking up about
Yeah,
this.
I think what's so great too. So one of our main coalitions, we were all working in our silos, but we came together because we were vendors in various things, and our classes were suddenly denied overnight. Our classes that we
Mhm.
provide to autistic people, and so what has been so great, and I think we all know this is, to come together, the factions, whether it's the certified settings versus the
Mhm.
self-direction, or the S2C versus whatever, all the things. When we come together and crowdsource and trade notes, there is really no stopping us, because in so many ways, as parents of the kids that we have, we've been like radicalized anyway.
Without a
we
doubt. Yeah, I mean,
we
like, 'cause
know.
we were already put in a separate bucket, like, way long ago.
Yeah, we know how to do things. You tell us something and we are not listening, with all due respect. We're going to figure out what to do. So then if you can get us all together and we can agree to disagree on a lot of the nuances, but all agree that the disability community deserves better, right? They deserve better housing options. They deserve programs, all the things that we know that we agree on, if we just focus on that. So I feel like we're in a new phase, which is really exciting, of us understanding that and working together.
You hit on a word that's one of my favorite, which is nuance and complexity. I think that caregivers, mothers, parents, fathers like you and I share something that I wouldn't have understood the depth of the definition of complexity and nuance had it not been for having the children that I do. And again, it is the gift in all of this. And it's not a shiny gift at all. It's a very heavy one. And at the same time, I think that the like you're saying, when we're in coalition together, we're in conversation together with other similar minded caregivers on a mission to expand what is possible for children like ours. There is an intensity of like being like these rushing rapids of waters. They're like, we can just flow because they insisted upon that of us when they showed us who they were. There was no other option than to keep moving, right? I wish we could have stopped it and analyzed and just said, we'll figure this out in a static, bubble. No, they beg of you to keep moving. And it's like what this skill is that you get from that is that you can sit in complexity. You can sit in the nuance of what's possible, not feel bogged down by what isn't happening right now, and always knowing that they're continuing to grow and develop just as any other human. It just looks so wildly different than what we've been conditioned to think as growth. And that's that nuance and complexity. I'm so glad that you brought those words up because it's so deeply baked into my mission.
Yeah, and I think in the early years too. So Ava's 17, but I remember in the earlier years too, just feeling like the hard work of unraveling like what I had in my fixed in beliefs, right? Like, oh, okay, that's not going to happen and that's not going to happen. Like all these things that I really hadn't considered. I didn't know an autistic person before Ava. Like this, I did not know anything about this community at all. And so there was just a lot that I had to learn and unlearn.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things I say every morning is I get to do this. I get to be their mother. I get to be the person that understands them and untangles all those questions alongside them, because if it's not for the mother, caregiver, father, parent, there's a much steeper hill ahead. And I think that what you're sharing just so beautifully resonant in this conversation. How you're building it is not from theory or not from a distance. It's from your life and being Ava's mom, learning from her, believing in her, choosing to expand that belief outwards is what I think the universe rewards. I think the universe rewards that and allows is why you're able to create opportunities for others. What you built with Invictus and the bakery isn't just about employment. It's about this human recognition. So thank you so much for who you are, for your little nook of this community. Make me grab some tissues after this because hearing about the speller community in Ava and the bakers and what's literally being baked from the inside. It challenges others to see how the world defines ability, and you're doing it. And I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing for our community.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for the opportunity to amplify the mission. I think the biggest thing too is just that, that I have another mom who started an organization, and she always says, and I agree, just don't overthink it. Just take the first step. If you look at my resume, I didn't have nonprofit experience. I'm not a baker. I didn't know about a storefront. I mean, like, there are a million reasons why I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, but I think having a team, right? That's a huge part of it. And then just being led by our kids and needing the community, because I think if we're honest, also, like, I have a complicated child. I have a complicated child. And so leaning on our community and our other families that totally get it is like one of the best things.
Yeah, interacting and not isolating will always be the right choice, even as hard as it is from a sense of the energetic input it takes. I always
Yeah.
say that getting outside of your home, making even one other connection with another family, whether that's a special needs family, a family that has a disabled child, or just your neighbor, it's never the wrong thing to interact. And
Yeah.
we are curious by nature as Homo sapiens, and that's been proven over time that curiosity is a good thing. And if people are curious and they stay open, any interaction will, I think, double and triple in spades. Thank you again for all that
Thank
you've done.
you.
I'm just really, really grateful you're here, and you've allowed your motherhood to shape it. You allowed it to shape something really impressive. So, Molly Sullivan of Invictus Bakery and Ava's mom, thank you for being here today on the INCHSTONES podcast.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.